Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Offside with Dan Lombard. Today we're going to discuss a very contentious issue in South African sport, and that is transformation. Being a sports journalist in South Africa allows me to read about sports on various different platforms, but especially on social media. And something that is a common thread on social media when our national and domestic teams do poorly is the topic of quotas and how they are destroying their respective sporting codes. Now, what these naysayers generally tend to do is they negate a very important aspect of their argument. They simply do not say it. But they do not bring in the fact that the playing fields are not equal. Black people for decades were discriminated against in various shapes and forms, where it was law in the country to prevent them from accessing certain things. Now, this spilled onto the sports fields of South Africa as well, and they were prevented from playing national and domestic sport of any kind for any higher honors outside of a hobby. They did have their own federations, that is true, but those federations didn't play against countries like England or New Zealand or Australia, the best versus the best. Now, a big thing is that these people who bring up these topics of quotas and how bad they are think that transformation can be solved in 2 months, a year, maybe 2 years, if we work hard enough. And what they don't understand is that these things take time. For decades, like I said, black people were discriminated against. It can't be solved in 2 years. True, the sporting governing bodies in South Africa did not do enough to come to the party, and they are partly to blame for the fact that transformation has still not realized its fruits. But that has since changed, and there are programs, especially in sports like rugby, the VUCA program and the Coca-Cola Schools of Excellence, that are actively seeking out talented black rugby players in previously disadvantaged areas. The government eventually got impatient with the lack of results in terms of transformation, and so they started demanding results, and SA Rugby had no choice, or any other sporting body for that matter, had no choice but to speed up results. The problem with doing this is that you transform from top down, and you cannot do that. It just doesn't make sense. It's not even a topic that needs to be discussed in length. You cannot transform from top down, because then you're going to be putting not necessarily the best black players in just to fill numbers. Rather, take the time, establish programs, implement the programs, start getting results after 4 or 5 seasons. So, in a nutshell, transform from grassroots up. That's the one thing. The second thing is that nobody is born with the desire to play for the Springboks. It's not something that we are born with. This is something that we learn. This is something we aspire to once we understand. Now, for the average white person, rugby is the be-all and end-all of a weekend. The bra with the family, the ruggers on the TV, everybody having a good time. But it's completely different in a black household. Previously disadvantaged people do not have access to certain things. I may be speaking out of line here because I'm not privy to every previously disadvantaged household, but general rule of thumb is that they are still battling the effects of apartheid, coming to terms and having to provide for more important things. Now, rugby is not free to air. It's not shown on free to air channels. It's shown on DSTV. A premium package is R1,000 a month. Where do young black players get to see rugby players if it's not on TV? This is something that contributes towards the lack of transformation, because a little boy or a little girl sitting in a rural area somewhere in South Africa who doesn't have access to television isn't going to know who guys like Sia Khaleesi is, who Victor Matfield was, who John Smith was in the Springbok colours. They're just not. So they're not going to look up to them, so they're not going to have a desire to play. We need to start instilling Springbok heroes in the hearts and minds of young black South Africans, so that they have something to aspire to and have the option to decide if rugby is what they want to pursue. I do honestly feel that unions and even schools can do more. Although some unions have these very elaborate transformation programs, I don't think enough is put in. I think it's more of a sideshow, to be completely honest. And I also believe schools like Grey College, Maritzburg College, Paul Boys, Paul Roos Gymnasium, Grey PE, Selborne, Dale College can go out and adopt schools from previously disadvantaged areas in the townships, in the rural areas. Take the equipment and the expertise they have as a school and go and be the heroes that these young players need initially to succeed. Those are my 2 cents on the contentious issue that is transformation in South Africa. Please leave your comments below. Share the story, get people talking. Let's create a productive way to fix transformation. And good luck to the Springboks. Thank you for listening to Offside with Dan Lombard.